What's up, everybody? You're watching the Fantasy Goods, and I'm going to get into Week 12 injuries and a little bit more, but I got to bang it out quick because I got some cooking to do today. So stay tuned because it's coming up next. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Goods. I'm Joshua Lipinski-McHale, and like I said, happy Thanksgiving. I got some cooking to get to, so I'm going to make this one quick, guys, and go through the injury report for Week 12 and maybe give you a little something at the end. But make sure you like and subscribe because here we go. 2020 has been a ruthless bitch, guys. We have another season-ending injury for rookie quarterback Joe Burrow, who tore his ACL last week. He is done for the year. He looked like he was having a pretty good rookie campaign, but he is done. They're saying that they're going to be starting Brandon Allen in his place, and I'm not loving that play, so I'd look elsewhere if you're looking to replace that volume. Next, we got Raheem Mostert and Austin Eckler, who have both been activated off the IR designated for return, so that means they have a 21-day window to return. Eckler's looking more like next week. Mostert has a pretty good possibility of playing this week. So hopefully you guys can get him in your lineup this week. We got Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders, Devonta Freeman, and David Johnson all still on IR, but they might be back as early as next week. Next, we got CMC, surprise, surprise, out again. I told you guys, prepare to be without him until the fantasy playoffs, and here he is, out again with his shoulder injury. This one's pretty funny. They said Drew Brees, initially his diagnosis was going to be 2 weeks to return from this rib injury. He has 11 fractured ribs and a punctured lung. So they've put him on IR and say that the most realistic return date is week 15. So I'm looking elsewhere for quarterback here. If you're lucky enough to pick up Taysom Hill and leave him in your tight end spot in ESPN formats, don't take him out, because once you take him out, you can't put him back in. You can get those quarterback points in that tight end slot. But if you're lucky enough to pick up Taysom Hill, he's been a pretty good running quarterback. He's not getting a lot of throwing, and it is hurting the receivers in New Orleans, but he himself is doing pretty well. Next, Deebo Samuel was back, and now he's out because he got popped for PEDs, so you're going to have to look elsewhere. I know Brandon Ayuk, I'll get to later, he's out as well. On the Lions, for today's game, you got Kenny Golladay still out with that hip, and Danny Amendola was just ruled out, so you're going to have to look for a deeper wide receiver in that Detroit offense if you want that volume. I'd go for a guy like Marvin Holmes. Some big names. We got Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, and DeAndre Hopkins, all huge receivers this year, are all questionable right now, but they're looking like they're on schedule to play this week. DeAndre Swift, still questionable with that concussion, guys. You're going to have to monitor that. Protocol's iffy with every different player and situation, so he might miss this week because, they're probably going to lose this game anyway with the damage that they have to their receiving core, so they're probably not going to push this kid back. Next, we got Mark Andrews, tight end for the Ravens, who is questionable with a thigh injury, but it's looking like he's going to play, especially since that game has been pushed back from today, Thanksgiving, to Sunday. Next, we got Todd Gurley, and I saw this coming, guys. Todd Gurley in a limited practice for his knees, his arthritic knees, guys. So you know that if you use him too much during the season, he kind of fizzles out at the end of the year, and here it is, guys. So if you can, I'd go and get that Brian Hill backup running back, because if Gurley is going to miss time or is going to need a game off, he's going to eat. Next, we got Giovanni Bernard, also dealing with a concussion issue, so you're going to have to look for Samaje Perine if he misses time, because with Mixon and Gio out, that's who we're going with. But I'm staying away from everybody on the Bengals right now with the loss of Joe Burrow, because he was what was moving this offense. And finally, another bright star replacement, Salvon Ahmed, is questionable and missed practice yesterday with a shoulder injury, so you're going to have to monitor that if he does not wind up suiting up, and Gaskins is obviously going to still be out. I'd probably look into either taking a shot on Matt Breida or going for the running back Perry there, who used to be a running quarterback for Navy in college, so he's got a little bit of upside there. And finally, for our COVID-19 list, this one is probably the longest one we have yet this season. We got Brandon Ayuk out with COVID-19. Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins, the running backs for the Ravens, out with COVID-19. And the biggest name of all, Adam Thielen, out with COVID-19. They are all effectively not going to be playing this week, so make sure you have backup plans. I know in the 49ers, you got Kendrick Bourne, so he might see an uptick in volume with Deebo Samuel and Ayuk being absent. But now there's also whispers that they are looking into signing Jordan Matthews, so pay attention to that. Obviously, the Ravens, that's two of the three heads in that running back that are really starting all season. That's been hurting each one of them because they've been splitting targets evenly. I'd go out and get Gus Edwards to replace that. He's going to see an uptick in volume. And then Adam Thielen, if you're lucky enough to have Justin Jefferson, or if he's out there on the wire somehow, go and get him. He's definitely going to see an uptick in volume in that offense. That does it for this week's injuries. I feel like I banged through that pretty fast, guys. I'm going to do a short little thing here in honor of Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving again. It's going to be called Feast or Famine. I'm going to give you players. It's basically like a stardom sit-em, guys. Players I think are going to go off this week and players that I think are going to fizzle. So first off, I said it already, Gus Edwards. He's on 48% of leagues right now. He is going to see a huge uptick in volume. And in that high run volume offense in Baltimore, I think he's going to eat. He has 3 rushing touchdowns on the season and has 4 games of double-digit carries. And I expect this to certainly be another one. And although they are going against the Steelers, who is one of the toughest defenses in the league, they've been getting a little weak against the run since they lost their middle linebacker, rookie Devin Bush. So I can see them worrying about Jackson and forgetting about the run game and underestimating Gus Edwards a little bit. So I think Gus Edwards is a great play this week, even against the Steelers defense. Next one I think that's going to feast is Nelson Agholor, owned in only 36% of leagues. And I told you guys to go and pick him up a while back. I think you should go and do it again this week because he's been playing lights out, man. He's got 6 touchdowns on the season, which is pretty damn good considering everybody was writing him off as a bust. And my favorite thing is he's playing Atlanta. I feel like I'm saying that every week. I'm going for the guys that are playing Atlanta and the Jets. But it is the way to go if you can stream that way, if you can pick up somebody with that matchup. Atlanta is the 3rd best matchup for wide receivers. Their defense has been getting better, but it's still not good enough, and I feel like the Raiders are getting on a roll. So I go pick up Nelson Agholor because he's got Atlanta this week, and like I said, he's got the Jets next week. So that's back-to-back matchups. You want to play him. And finally, for my last feast candidate, I'm going with a guy I mentioned earlier, Marvin Hall. He's going to be the wide receiver that is going to be stepping up and seeing a huge uptick in volume in that Lions offense. He's only owned in 2% of leagues, so you could definitely go and find him out there somewhere. I'm not saying start him in your top 2 or 3 wide receivers, but he's definitely an interesting flex play. Like I said, you got Danny Amendola and Kenny Golladay out, and they have a pretty friendly matchup against Houston, who's number 9 against wide receivers. And he's done well even with them in the lineup. He's had 2 double-digit games in the last 4 weeks. And he's done that with only getting more than 5 targets one time. And that one time that he was targeted more than 5 times, he was targeted 7 times and caught 113 yards against Indianapolis, which is another really tough defense. So I'm thinking an easier matchup, more volume. This guy's going to put up good points, good numbers, and I'd go and wouldn't mind putting him in my flex. And finally, for the famine, these guys I think are going to not be good plays this week. I'm going with just about every wide receiver on the Bengals. They play the New York Giants, which everybody laughs at, but their defense has been pretty solid. They're actually the number 13 matchup for wide receivers right now, and their secondary just got stronger because I believe they got their 2nd-round rookie, Xavier McKinney, back from IR, so that secondary just got a lot tougher. Then, obviously, you lost Joe Burrows for the season, so that's a big hit to this entire receiving core. And you got Brandon Allen in place who, has he done anything? Not really. You got Joe Mixon out. Giovanni Bernard might be out. So this Bengals team is just a mess this week. I'm staying away if I can. Obviously, if you got Tyler Boyd, I consider playing him just because of the volume that he'll see, but maybe I might look to replace T. Higgins in my lineup if I'm you. And obviously, if you haven't dropped A.J. Green already, I know he's been hot and cold all season. I was even considering picking him up last week before Burrows went down. But now that Burrows is gone, I am staying far away from A.J. Green. And my last famine pick for this week, I don't think he's going to eat. Lamar Jackson. Like I said, I think Pittsburgh defense is going to focus on Lamar Jackson. They've done a great job last time out boxing up Lamar Jackson, not letting him out of the pocket and forcing him to throw. And that's not something that he really specializes at. He's all right at throwing, but he's a running quarterback. And I mean, Hollywood Brown put up a goose egg last week. You got Mark Andrews, his favorite target, who's dealing with a thigh injury. His run game is going to be a mess. I know Gus Edwards I have as a feast, but I think that's because they're going to focus on Jackson. So I think that his run game's a mess. It might not get in the flow, but I'm still thinking Gus Edwards sees the better part of those carries. And I mean, who else you got to throw there other than the guys I've named? Dez Bryant, 31-year-old Dez Bryant who had 4 catches. I mean, this could be a game where he sees some volume, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to make Jackson be a great start this week. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Fantasy Good. That's my Feast and Famine Week 12 injury report. So I hope this helps you guys out. Remember to like and subscribe. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think of the video. And like I said before, thank you for watching. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy some food. Enjoy some football. Enjoy some family. Keep it under 10 people. But until next time, this was the Fantasy Goods, and we got the goods.